Good morning, everyone. Josh is Severe Weather. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope your Tuesday's going well so far. We are starting to see more coming to life here in the tropics and a couple of storms to track today and maybe some more potential storms to track as we head into next week. So I'm going to share my screen with you and talk about what I think in the United States, the Caribbean, we need to keep a closer eye on, a potential new threat developing next week, early in the week. And the next name on the list is Emily. We do have a storm out there now that's Dawn that is not a threat to land. This one hasn't formed yet, so forecast certainty is a lot higher than you would expect, closer to an event, but it is something that I'm tracking for you. And I'm of the notion that I would rather tell people about something that may form that could affect maybe their travel plans in a couple of weeks so that at least it's on their radar, even if it doesn't pan out. And this one may not pan out, but we are heading into a more favorable environment to see storms develop over the central Atlantic. We saw this in June. There's now another, what we call a Kelvin wave set to add to some instability from the tropical monsoon. That's going to allow more organization in the tropics than what we've seen through the month of July. So we may have something forming here in, say, 6 to 8 days over the central Atlantic coming off the African coast. After that, there's, of course, uncertainty as to where it may go, but a general track towards the west or west-northwest could put the islands in its crosshairs here later next week. So we've got a lot of time, but certainly something we're going to watch. Right now, we do have Tropical Storm Dawn. Now, if you were with me before, it was a subtropical storm. It has now gathered enough warmth in its core to be classified as a tropical system. The winds are only 40 miles per hour. It's not a major storm. It is going to remain over the central Atlantic and more than likely not be a threat to land. The Eastern Pacific is pretty quiet. We do have an area that may develop slowly over the next couple of days. Not a huge concern. But we actually do have a system which will be making landfall in the United States. This is Tropical Storm Calvin, which is quickly moving towards the big island of Hawaii. And we do have a tropical storm warning in effect for the big island. So our first landfall in the U.S. is going to be coming on the Pacific side of things. This is not going to be a humongous deal for Hawaii, but it is going to cause some local issues with rain and wind, and it's moving very quickly and will be impacting the islands here this evening and through the overnight hours tonight. I'm going to get to that in just a little bit. Here is our water vapor satellite imagery, and you can see no threats to the United States, at least on this side here. The Pacific does have an area that we're watching here where it's going to be spinning up potential development, and maybe we see another system in the Pacific behind Calvin. But overall, nothing of imminent threat. The Gulf is as quiet as you'll get right now. The Western Atlantic does have a front hanging out, some showers and storms along that, then an upper level low spinning northeast of Bermuda. But you'll see over the monsoonal region, nothing at this point that is threatening the islands. So still pretty quiet overall. In the Eastern Atlantic, though, we do have a couple of waves coming off the monsoonal trough, but still a very large region of dry air in place from the Saharan air layer. And as this Kelvin wave moves in here over the next week or so, that could very well start to disintegrate that dry air. It may not happen right away, so we may not see immediate development, but eventually we think there's at least a decent chance, maybe a moderate chance, that a named storm could form here in the next 10 days. It's going to be a little while. We got a lot of time to watch, but I want you to at least be made aware of that for the time being. Now, this is Tropical Storm Dawn. Still does not look very pretty on satellite. You can see it's drifting southward, avoiding the wind shear from the north. These are the Azores. They're getting some blow-off clouds and a few showers over the western Azores, but they're not really seeing major wind. But this has finally detached itself from this big trough here to the north and east of it, so it is now finally fully tropical, but it's certainly not a pretty-looking system. Not a lot of circulation, thunderstorm development. Here's the center here, and all the thunderstorms are off to the east and northeast. So Dawn is very ragged, but it is moving into slightly warmer waters and does have a chance to slowly organize in the next couple of days. So the National Hurricane Center has this system remaining a tropical storm over the next 7 days and making a loop, counterclockwise loop back across the north central Atlantic. Now you'll notice this is Newfoundland, Canada. If you look at the swath here of potential track, you'll see that while right now it looks like the storm center is aimed east of Newfoundland, there is some obviously some part of the cone that very well, as we get to next Monday or Tuesday, include the southeastern portion of Newfoundland. So that's something I'm going to keep an eye on. Here's where our spaghetti models show. They're all showing the system continuing southeast, then turning back to the south and eventually to the west in 2 days. and then accelerating and moving west-northwest and then making a loop, a counterclockwise loop. This is in response to what's going to be a high pressure region aloft that is building westward, or surface high, I should say, not aloft, that's building westward and pushing the storm on a more westerly track. So this is Newfoundland right here, and the majority of the model guidance does not go out beyond 144 hours, but for the most part, we're seeing it turn away from Newfoundland, for the most part. Here's the intensity forecast, and you will see that as wind shear relaxes, we will see some gradual intensification. Nothing making this a hurricane, but certainly a low to moderate end tropical storm here towards the end of this week and into the weekend, and then maybe some slow weakening over the cooler waters of the North Atlantic here around this time next week. Here's the HWRF model. It's a tropical model. It shows dawn slowly intensifying, surface pressures dropping down to about 1,000 millibars or so, maybe even down to as low as 997. This would be early in the morning on Thursday. And this is the Azores. This is Bermuda, still in the middle of nowhere in the middle Atlantic. So fortunately, not a threat to land. And then as we get towards Friday, we start to see the surface pressures rising, indicating a weakening trend. And then this is Saturday, and this tropical model does not go past Saturday night. This is around midnight Saturday night. But you can see the HWRF, this was the model that was farthest to the west, does have the storm system coming a little bit close to the, I think it's the Avalon Peninsula here of Newfoundland. It's probably going to go east of there. But if this high ends up farther west, then obviously we need to be a little more concerned. Not going to be a strong system, but certainly some rain and wind coming. So we'll talk more about Dawn in the coming days. This is Calvin. It was once a Category 3 hurricane, now down to a tropical storm. The circulation down in here, this is the Big Island of Hawaii. At this pace, it's going to be moving over the islands here this evening. Right now in Hawaii, as of this video, it's only about midnight, or not even midnight. So probably got about 16, 18 hours before landfall, but it is moving in the general direction of the Big Island. The track takes it over the southern part of the island, and we do have a tropical storm warning in effect. Looks like that landfall is probably going to be around midnight local time, Hawaii time. I think that's about 7 or 8 o'clock Eastern tomorrow morning. So around the time I'm doing this video tomorrow, you'll be seeing the storm crossing or coming very close to the far southern tip of Hawaii and weakening as it does so. Winds are 45 miles per hour. The trend will continue to be that Calvin slowly weakens down to a minimal tropical storm and then a depression. So while it is going to be a rare landfall in Hawaii, it's not going to be a huge deal. We're mainly talking some gusty winds, higher surf, and some heavy rain for the Big Island. We do have mountains, so flooding is certainly a possibility. The good news is that for Honolulu, for the northern islands, this is really not going to be much of a brush for you. We'll just see some enhancement in the trades, a little bit more rain than what you might be used to. The intensity forecast shows that Calvin is going to weaken below tropical storm strength in about 24 to 36 hours, so Wednesday morning, and continuing that weakening trend, and may not even be a tropical cyclone as we get towards the end of the week. And that's due to wind shear and some cooler water. The European shows wind gusts here as we get into the overnight hours, picking up and gusting to as high as 40 to 50 miles per hour on the island, locally higher amounts on the top of the mountains here. But at the coast, generally 20 to 30 mile per hour winds. Actually, Maui may see locally stronger gusts over 40 miles per hour. Same for Oahu at this point. So we are going to see locally gusty winds. It's not going to be all day tropical storm force wind, but we will see a few gusts into that range. And as we get really to about Thursday, things start to weaken at that point. In fact, I'll take the swath off and you can kind of see here, the gustiest winds are going to be moving by here overnight tonight, first thing tomorrow morning. And then winds do relax on the Big Island tomorrow morning, local time. They'll be at their gustiest tomorrow in the morning and midday hours across the central islands, and then in the evening hours across the northwestern chain. And then by Thursday, winds have already died off and you're looking at your typical trade winds. So it's not a big deal. Rain could be on the heavy side though here. We'll see it picking up here this afternoon, and then especially tonight, raining very hard on the island, on the Big Island. Maybe as much as 5 to 6 inches of rain accumulates, maybe even as much as 8. And even on Maui here, we could see some rainfall totals in excess of 4 inches. But for Honolulu and for most of the resorts here on Oahu, we're going to see less than an inch of rain. Really, all the rain is going to be on the trade side here, and on the western and southwestern side of the islands, we are going to largely miss significant rain. So yeah, it's a little bit of a big deal for Hawaii, but it's not going to be destructive at this point, so I'm not super worried about it. Now let's take a look at the longer term, and these are ensembles here. This is Weather Nerds, the GFS ensembles. And I'm going to take you through here. This is dawn. Now we're looking at potentially some lower pressure showing up here tomorrow, and maybe some development here by Friday, as we have some low pressure clusters here. So we may see a yellow area showing up here on the Hurricane Center forecast in a couple of days, if this is correct. Now, generally speaking, you see a westerly track. We have a high pressure region up here. Don't worry so much about these. These are surface lows that aren't tropical, but this is over the weekend, and a decent cluster that shows a depression, maybe even a tropical storm here by Sunday. Maybe that's if it gets aggressive enough here. And then this is next Monday. And then as we head into Tuesday, we may have a threat to the islands here on Tuesday, or we could have something that's turning away and strengthening to the north and east of the islands. This is next Thursday. And again, we start getting scattered. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. There are a few model runs that show it dying over the Caribbean. If it takes a more northerly track, it's more of an issue maybe for Haiti and Dominican Republic and Jamaica. And there's a chance that this could be harmlessly turning away to the right, but maybe an issue for Bermuda. So a very big spread, but you see quite a few model ensembles here do show not just a storm system, but maybe a more intense storm system as conditions become more favorable. For the most part, we're keeping it out of the Gulf, but we do have still a couple solutions showing that. The majority of the model guidance shows it near or to the east of the Atlantic coast. I would think we have one of two solutions. And again, this is way off in the future, so please don't put too much stress on it at this point. But if it stays weak and it goes into the Caribbean, then it's either going to die or maybe try to sneak up towards the Gulf from the southern part. But more than likely, it's going near or east of the Bahamas. More than likely, if it does strengthen, like some of the models show. So again, nothing to really fret about, even though I drew you to this video because of my headline, because I wanted you to see this, but we still have a long time, potentially until the beginning of August, before any kind of potential impact on the U.S. So the week of the 31st is what we're looking at this point. And again, that is still too far out to make an accurate tropical forecast. I have shared some models. I realize some people here do not like that. They think that I'm trying to scare folks. And really, all I'm doing is just addressing that, yes, some models are picking up on it. This model itself, more than likely, is too aggressive. More than likely, this is going to change. But it's going around social media. I think I need to address it just to let you know I'm keeping an eye on it, but not to stress just yet. Right? I know there's a meteorologist in Tampa, Dennis Phillips. I know him personally, who has a rule that says don't freak out. And that's exactly what I want you to just do. Don't freak out, but know that now we're starting to get into a busier pattern. We see more lift in the tropics. We see more development coming off of Africa. So now's the time to just start preparing and keeping a closer eye on things, because we've been in a lull and now we're going to start heading into a busier pattern. So Emily is the next name on the list. You can see from the European ensemble, low chance of potential development here by the end of this week. Maybe a slightly better chance over the weekend down in here. Don't stress about the Carolinas. This will not be tropical. This is dawn here, so we already know it's formed. And the European says, if it does form, there are some ensembles showing that, then it's more than likely going to be next Monday and Tuesday when it impacts the islands. And then this is Wednesday, and then this is Thursday. And the ensembles take it into Hispaniola and basically kill it at that point. But as you saw, the GFS is going north, so that could be a different setup as well. Here is the GFS. You can see it tries to develop a depression here late this weekend, early next week. And the GFS does love to be bullish on this. It develops things quickly and, in my opinion, too fast. And by next Tuesday, it's got potentially a hurricane. And this is Wednesday, but you can see it's tracking towards Bermuda and recurving to the north and east. Now, the model following it doesn't go out that far, but you can see it's much farther south into the Caribbean by next Tuesday and Wednesday, and then basically dies south of Jamaica here at the end of next week. The GFS has been totally inconsistent, but it is the one that is leading the pack and showing something. If you look back at yesterday's runs, you can see it kind of killed it over the Bahamas here around the 31st, and then tried to reform it off the East Coast here by August 2nd as a weak system. There were scarier runs before. This one took it right through Florida on August 1st and 2nd. I'm not saying that couldn't happen, but probably too aggressive. The model run before that took the system basically just east of the Outer Banks and then kicks it off to sea. That would be fine. We just hope it's not this strong. The model run before it, much stronger and much scarier. And again, if the model shows this over and over, then we've got a bigger issue, but it's not. So again, don't freak out about it at this point. Just keep an eye on it. We saw other runs taking it into the Gulf here as a weaker, maybe a tropical storm towards Mississippi. So you can see it's all over the place. I would not be shocked if the next model run took it back to Florida, and then the one after it took it to the Gulf, and the one after it took it to Bermuda. So again, I do think there's going to be some form of a tropical system. I don't necessarily want to scare everybody and say there'll be a Category 4 hitting Florida. Is it possible? Sure. Is it the likeliest scenario? Right now, way too soon to make that call. So just be prepared at this point. That's really all we can say. In the U.S., I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but we've seen record heat over Texas, over the Southwest. We actually had some stronger storms in the Vegas area. Some monsoonal moisture did sneak up into Arizona. Rough weather yesterday across Kansas and Missouri, and then last night across Kentucky into the Ohio Valley. Today, the focus is for flooding here in New England, another round of heavy rain. You see these grays, these are air quality, and we are dealing with wildfire smoke across the Northeast, Carolinas, even the Atlanta area. It's hot in South Florida, nothing new there, but it's going to continue to be hot. And we are looking at potentially some severe weather coming from this complex moving through Nebraska this morning. That's going to dive south and east into some of the same spots that had the severe weather yesterday. We do have a slight risk in effect from south of Omaha right through Kansas City and down into western Tennessee. As this storm complex moves south and east, there is a 2% chance for tornadoes, 15% chance for severe wind, and 15% chance for severe hail. Another area we're keeping an eye on is the Dakotas into Manitoba. A threat for tornadoes, but certainly some large hail later in the day today. Tomorrow, by the way, the Northeast could see some stronger storms here with a marginal risk for some hail and strong winds. But heavy rain is the biggest problem, and unfortunately, that's hitting the same places as it has the last 2 weeks. Tomorrow, no organized area severe weather, but we could have some rough storms in the mid-Atlantic region. We could have some local severe weather from Minnesota down into New Mexico, and maybe some heavy storms in the monsoonal areas as well in the Southwest, and then more severe weather as we get to Thursday across the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes, across the central high plains, and then into the Carolinas as our front moves south and east. And we may see some upgrades coming to this by Thursday as well. Flood threat today into tonight over the lower Ohio Valley into western and middle parts of Tennessee. There could be significant amounts of rain across this area. It was wet yesterday. We're also looking at a slight risk for flash flooding from New York up to Maine and southeast Quebec. Not as bad as what we saw, hopefully, on this past Saturday and Sunday, but still pretty rough. Tomorrow, we look back into Tennessee and the Western Carolinas to see our threat for some flash flooding. As we get to Thursday, the Appalachians and the Central High Plains have a risk for flash flooding. And then Friday and Saturday, more marginal risks over parts of the Southeast and the Northeast. Here's a look at our rain totals from the Weather Prediction Center here. As much as 3 inches of rain possible here in parts of northern New England over the next couple of days. Across the Ohio Valley and into Tennessee, a lot of rain expected here, maybe as much as 8 inches in the TVA areas here, maybe west of Paris, Tennessee, towards Clarksville and north of Jackson, Tennessee. So a lot of rain will be falling the next couple of days. That spreads east into West Virginia, into the Smokies, and into the Blue Ridge here later on Thursday, and then also some heavy rain over parts of Kansas. Sorry, I got to keep rolling here, but here's a look at our forecast radar. Here's the complex in Nebraska. It'll produce some severe weather across Missouri here this afternoon, and then western Kentucky, downstate Illinois, western Tennessee late in the day into this evening. Be prepared for hail, strong winds, and a few isolated tornadoes. Behind that, more storms overnight in some of the same areas, which will produce training rain and thunderstorms and local flash flooding. More storms across the northern plains. Minnesota, watch out for some severe weather tomorrow afternoon. Same for Kansas. And we'll see active weather here across parts of the southern and central high plains. In the Northeast, we're looking at rounds of showers and storms, which aren't moving quickly across New England. Flash flooding possible. That continues into the early part of tonight. Then we get a break. Tomorrow should be a little bit quieter across this area. Some showers over Maine and Atlantic Canada. Some showers and storms, though, across Virginia and North Carolina tomorrow, and some of those could be strong to severe. And we will continue to watch what moves into Georgia and the Smokies tomorrow evening, or late this evening and overnight tonight, and then tomorrow especially for locally strong to severe storms. The Raleigh area, maybe Richmond and Charlottesville could have some severe weather tomorrow afternoon, Myrtle as well, and Southwest Florida could see quite a bit of action that will cool us off from the heat, but we may have some locally heavy rain here in Southwest Florida as well. Temperatures today still hot, 90s, low to mid 90s from the I-95 corridor down. Record heat over parts of Louisiana, triple digits in parts of the Arklatex region into Arkansas. Texas, more record heat, 107 in Dallas, up to as high as 110 in parts of the Rio Grande Valley, 108 around Amarillo. And then the real nasty heat is in the Southwest again. Phoenix had a record high yesterday, probably seeing that again today, up to 116, as high as 125 in Death Valley. And smoke will be an issue here in the Northeast. We have flooding and we have smoke, just kind of a double whammy today. Should see some improvement towards the evening. We'll still have smoke, though, in parts of the Carolinas, right down into northern Florida. This is all coming from Canadian wildfires. You'll see it stays smoky into North Florida here tonight. Tomorrow, though, should be a better day overall. And we see this as well in the central part of the country, a little bit of smoke across the Great Lakes, another wave of it coming down into the Dakotas and Minnesota for tomorrow morning, and that will spread eastward into the lakes. I really appreciate y'all's time today. If you're a returning member who's subscribed already and you want to see more, I do have a membership channel. It's about 33 cents a day. Appreciate your support with that. I don't make a lot of money, but every little bit will help me be able to continue to expand this channel and improve on my offering. The goal is just to help protect you guys from what's going to be rough weather. I want to give all the glory to God, who has given me this gift to be a communicator of the weather. I'm a degreed meteorologist. I've done it for over 20 years. And I don't take that gift lightly. I do my very best to communicate with you all any potential issues down the road. God has also given me the calling to share the word through his son, Jesus Christ, who I accepted 10 years ago. Christ is my savior. And that's what drives me every day to do what I do. As a professional, I want to serve my customers and people who are watching me. But as a Christian, I'm here to serve the greater good. And that is my calling. God has wonderful news for us. 1 Corinthians 2, the King James Version, and I, brethren, when I came to you, came not with excellency of speech or of wisdom, declaring unto you the testimony of God. For I determined not to know anything among you, save Jesus Christ and him crucified. And I was with you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. And my speech and my preaching was not with enticing words of man's wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power, that your faith should not stand in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. Howbeit we speak wisdom among them who are perfect, yet not the wisdom of this world, nor of the princes of this world that come to naught. But we speak the wisdom of God in a mystery, even the hidden wisdom which God ordained before the word unto our glory, which none of the princes of this world knew, for had they known it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. But as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. But God hath revealed to them unto us by his Spirit, for the Spirit searcheth all things, yea, the deep things of God. For what man knoweth the things of a man, save the spirit of man which is in him? Even so the things of God knoweth no man but the Spirit of God. Now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit which is God, of God, that we might know the things that are freely given to us of God. God's ultimate wisdom can only be understood spiritually. It is revealed to all of us through his Spirit, through Jesus Christ, although many have not accepted that gift. So they cannot understand God's work in us, the gifts that God has given us, the calling that we have. And so many folks reject the idea that Jesus Christ was crucified and say that it was just kind of, foolish. I mean, there was really no meaning to it. It's just something historically. But realizing that God did this to save us eternally, to wipe us clean of all of our debt on earth, and not what the world sees as debt. You can get thrown in jail. You can be vilified here on earth, but it means nothing to the Lord if you stay faithful to him and share that word of God. And that's all I want to share with you all today. That drives me to do whatever I do, because we're all dealing with crap in our lives. We all have stuff going on. I have family things going on that it's just really, really dark right now. But I know that the Lord is there to provide for us. And in the end, because we have accepted Jesus Christ as our Savior, we will be given eternal life. And God's going to say, I don't care how much money you made. I do care a little bit how you treated people, but really all I care about is that you stayed faithful to me. And good and faithful servant, you will be able to live eternally in heaven for the rest of your lives. eternally, whatever that means, the end of time. Jesus is coming, folks, and we are seeing this every day where there's a big divide. People are changing what have been God's commands and making them their own, and it's causing more and more divide, and it hurts. It hurts the Lord, but just know that there is encouragement. There is a bright light at the end of that tunnel. I want to pray for you if that's the situation you're in and you are struggling and you are not yet a person of faith, or maybe you've accepted God, but you are not seeing God. I want to pray for you and help God see you again in the way that you think he should, even though it is up to him. So thank you all so much for your time today. Please be safe out there. We'll talk again in the morning, and I hope you have a blessed Tuesday. God bless you.